And a good Tuesday morning, Eagles fans. It's 2-week Tuesday, meaning 2 weeks until the NFL draft. Feels like we've been waiting about 2 years. It just
Oh man, you're right. Silly season. It's wearing on me, Jody.
it
Wearing on me.
on all of us. It just crawls up. Once you get into draft mode, it can't get here. So you want it to be 24 hours later. And you look up at the calendar and realize, oh, shoot, we got 2 months before we get there. Well, we're down to 2 weeks before we get to the draft. And we got two good draft guests coming your way that I'll give you details on in just a second here. But I do want to start with draft talk today, J Mac, because it is the 2 week marker. And I need your take on what this draft is to the Eagles. And we sit here every day and talk about what Howie Roseman's going to do. Is he going to trade up? Is he going to trade back? We know he's going to try and trade because that's how his MO always has been, probably always will be. And if you're grading him on it after the fact, he's been pretty damn good at doing it. So we all expect it. But until he does it, we don't know what he's going to get done or how he's going to get it done. So we have to have a conversation, hypothetical as it is, about where the Eagles picks are as of right now. So we know they've got 2 first-round picks at 10 and 30. They've got their own second and third, no fourth, fifth, or sixth-round picks, and then 2 seventh. So we believe that the Eagles will make moves and change those numbers before the draft gets underway 2 weeks from today. But if you just look at the picks that they have, people like to throw around the phrase that it's a luxury pick. Last year, the Eagles took a couple luxury picks. I just have a problem with the use of that word. It sounds a little flippant to me. I'd rather use the word depth pick. It's a depth pick, someone you're not expecting to step in and play in year one, be it either as a starter or as a significant shuttle-in guy. Some positions lend themselves to guys getting partial playing time because they use different guys at that position. I don't like the use of the word luxury pick. Now, it can turn out to, quote-unquote, be a luxury pick, and that's exactly what happened with the Eagles last year with their second and third round picks. They didn't have to play them much at all. Oh, they're going to be asked to play this year. They're going to be asked to step in and play. So how much is it a luxury if they just sit for 1 year? Red shirt a year. Do you have as big a problem with the use of the word luxury pick as I do?
I mean, I don't have a problem with the word because to me, it's all about, all right, what does it mean in the context of the draft? So people just use it as a term. You just used it as a different definition, which is, that's the definition. It's a depth pick. So that's when people say luxury, that's what they mean. They mean he's not going to play right away. The draft is about more than 1 year. Especially with the smart teams, and I consider the Eagles in that category. And I've yet to meet the fan, which is kind of ironic. I've yet to meet the fan that isn't in the moment for a particular draft. Like they're not thinking about 2024, certainly not thinking about 2025, which is ironic because, and we always use the Sixers as a best example. I always say they broke the cities. Everybody's talking about the future, but then the draft comes around and it's never about the future. It's about, I want this toy. I want this. And the Eagles are very disciplined. And, I think the Jalen Reagor pick really was a sort of a demarcation line for Howie Roseman in a lot of ways. Because he didn't want to take that pick. And a lot of people don't believe it because, everybody wants a run from that pick and you want to blame somebody else. And believe me, I had a lot of those same thoughts. But over time, it's pretty clear he didn't want to take Jalen Reagor. And it's true. And the coaching staff wanted him. And he sort of demurred to the coaching staff and a player they wanted that they thought that he could fit the scheme really well. And it was at that point where he kind of said to himself, you know what, if I'm going to get crap for these picks, I might as well take these picks and put your foot down, good or bad. And that's what he's sort of done. And even Even when you talk about Andy Weidel leaving and replacing him with essentially, he didn't replace him from an assistant sort of GM perspective. Andy never had that title, but that's what he was essentially. And he replaced him with, guys with backgrounds in analytics and a guy with a background in football compliance, not personnel guys. That's not, he's got a personnel department, but obviously, and they're very important, but he wants everybody to know this is my pick. This is my pick. And all these picks will be Howie. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Back in the old days, is that a chip pick? Is that a Howie pick? What is that? Even when Joe Douglas was here, was that a Joe Douglas guy? Is that a Howie Roseman guy? No more. These are all Howie Roseman picks for good or for bad. So if you want to rip them afterwards, rip them. If you want to laud them afterwards, laud them. But getting back to your original point, I want to open the wormhole already. The term to me means depth pick. So, if you like that phrase better, use that phrase. But, Howie says it all the time, today's luxury is tomorrow's necessity.
Exactly.
And it happened really, really quickly with Landon Dickerson, who was a luxury pick at the time. And all of a sudden, he's in there pretty quickly off a torn ACL in his rookie season, turning out to be a really good player. With Cam Jurgens, it worked out as a bit of a luxury because he didn't have to play right away. And he might not even have to play this year, to be honest. We'll see how things shake out in the draft if they add another body. But I mean, yeah, it's all about definitions, and that's sort of what it means in the context of the draft. And the good teams are always serving those two masters. The Eagles want to win now. They know the window's open. So they want to win now. But if the better player is a bit more of a project, they're not going to go down the Jalen Reagor route anymore.
Here's how I would split the difference and tell you why I like the use of the word depth over luxury. A luxury pick to me would be if you take a player in the first round, that's key there, first round, and he plays a position where you've already got an entrenched starter. Yeah, that's a luxury pick. Once you get to the second round, there are no more luxury picks. There are only depth picks, like Dickerson, like Beef Jerky, like Nakobe Dean. Those aren't luxury picks. Those are depth picks. And yeah, sometimes depth picks because of injury are called on to jump up and play that first year. You don't know it. You kind of root against it. But if necessary, you have to be able to plug them in. You have confidence that you'll be able to do that and plug that right back in. Do you take a luxury pick in the sixth round? Where do we cut off luxury picks? If we're using the word luxury pick, where do we cut it off? After the first round, after the second? I'll buy after the first, but anything after that, that's BS. That's what the draft is about. Picking depth for guys who might not be penned in as a starter in year one, but at some point you believe they can step in and start for you.
I would say day 3, there's no more luxury picks. Everybody wants contributors. NFL teams call them premium picks. That's what they call first through third round. They want those guys to be contributors. They want, if you want to go first and second round, they want those guys to be starters. They want them to be starters. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's the goal. So, I mean, Jalen Hurts would be the most obvious example.
Yeah.
Cam's Jalen Hurts, make no mistake about it. This is all revisionist history from the Eagles' standpoint. He was the definition of a luxury pick. The very definition of a luxury pick in the second round. Everything else, everything from then is revisionist history if the Eagles are trying to spin it or anybody's trying to spin it in another direction. They had no intention of moving on from Carson Wentz. Ian Rappaport, by the way, was just on last week on somebody's show, and I apologize because I can't remember, talking about the combine last year when the rumors were just going nuts that the Eagles were about to acquire Russell Wilson, or really making a push to acquire Russell Wilson. Obviously, Russell never opened that door, never agreed to come to Philadelphia. Everything is revisionist history. He was taken as a cost-effective backup at a position they consider very important.
Yep.
But he was the definition of a luxury pick in the second round. So is Cam Jurgens. As long as Jason Kelsey is there. Definition. You want, but long term, and again, it just depends on the definition. I'm giving you what NFL people define these picks as. Premium picks, 1, 2, 3. Luxury picks. He's not going to play right away. That's all that means. He's not going to play right away. Aaron Rodgers was a luxury pick when the Packers had Brett Favre for 3 stinking years. Jordan Love, same thing. And he'll probably be your quarterback 2 decades from now after he becomes a Hall of Famer. If things hold up.
I'll cover that action for you, Jay. Man.
Yeah, if things hold up in Green Bay and their horseshoe up there, what continues. But that's all it means is the guy's not going to play right away. And with first round picks, especially top 15, the Eagles are top 10. Usually, you want those guys to be starters right away.
That's where I got no problems with the use of the word luxury. You use a top half of the first round of the draft pick for a guy who is going to start the next year as a backup. Oh, that's a luxury. There's no question about that. But Nakobe Dean in the third round wasn't a luxury pick. He was a depth pick. And oh, by the way, they come calling year number 2. Not only does he have to step in, but he's going to have to step in and be big time in his second year because the Eagles let 2 starting linebackers walk out the door. So you go from depth pick to you better be able to play at a very high level in a very short period of time. I know they're just definitions.
To be honest, Jody, I think the definition is more about the guy in front of you or the guys in front of you than the case of Nakobe, who didn't have, TJ's a very good player, but he wasn't, in trend. Like Jason Kelsey's going to the Hall of Fame. Carson Wentz was, just given the largest the contract in franchise history. It's more about the guy in front of you. I just brought up Aaron Rodgers with Brett Favre, obviously Hall of Famer. Jordan Love with Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Famer. It's more about the guys in front of you or the guy at a certain position. And at linebacker, the Eagles didn't have entrenched. It worked out. TJ played really well. Kaiser White held his own. Nakobe basically never saw the field because those guys didn't allow him to get on the field. But they if they shat the bed, so to speak, he would have had an opportunity to play. So to me, it's more about the guy in front of you. Oh, like if the Eagles take Peter Skoronski, and he might start at right guard, but they will be taking him to be the heir apparent to Lane Johnson because Lane has at least said he's thinking about 2 more years. It's about the guy in front of you.
Here's the question to that. If they had re-signed Isaac Seumalo, is there any chance they're taking Skoronski at 10?
No.
Well, then he's not a luxury pick. If he's got a chance to step in and start year 1, and he's going to be given the chance to compete for the right guard spot, which opened up because Isaac went elsewhere, then that removes the luxury tag for me. No, he's got a chance to start. If Beef Jerky goes in there and is better with a year under his belt, NFL experience, and they decide to go that way, and he ends up sitting, that's one thing. But if you've got a chance to step in and start year 1, it's not a luxury pick. If you know that you got 2 starters and the only way this guy's going to see at the field is if somebody blows out a knee, then yeah, that's a luxury pick to me. I know I'm in a semantical debate with myself, but it just rubs me the wrong way when people call luxury picks, which are actually only depth picks. That it's kind of like you're throwing the pick away, and I just don't agree with that. So I got that off my chest. Every once in a while, there's a term or a phrase that is used by the NFL, which just doesn't compute with me. So that's the way yours truly defines it. You don't think you call it what you want, luxury pick, depth pick. Do you think there is any chance the Eagles go with the John McMullen definition of luxury pick in the first round?
At number 10?
Number 10.
No. Yeah, you just don't. That's too valuable. Too valuable a pick, and that's what Howie's about. Is about value. Not only getting a good player, but getting a good player at a right spot. Like, right. There are many players you can go down every draft that turn into Pro Bowl players, all pro players, whatever, second rounders, third rounders. And you would say, in theory, from a, vacuum standpoint, well, if you would have taken that guy at 10 overall, it would have worked out. Russell Wilson, maybe the best example. The Eagles, for years wrung their hands. They're still talking about it last off season. Oh, we wanted Russell Wilson. We're right there. We had, well, you didn't want him that bad enough because you could have taken him in the second round and it would have worked out just fine.
Right.
Could have taken him in the first round. It would have worked out just fine. But from Howie's perspective, that would be a bad pick, even if he turned into Super Bowl winner and Pro Bowl quarterback that he did, because he didn't have to take him in the first round. I mean, he could have had somebody else and taken him in the second round on top of it. And then you have two play. So he's almost at times too focused on the value has got to match the spot. And you can get in trouble sometimes. But typically, I think over the long haul, it's the right way to go. And you're going to make more good decisions than bad decisions by going down that route. But there's the occasional player, and I'm going to rename this show Bijan 365. And everybody who wants Bijan Robinson, and you get in the chat room, no matter how many times I say it, he's a blue chip player. He's a great player. He's a great player. The Eagles aren't going to take him at number 10. It's about the Eagles' philosophy, the Eagles' scheme, the Eagles and what they believe. Not about what John McMullen believes. It's not about Bijan Robinson. They are not taking him at 10. Period.
You and I agree on that. Where you and I split, and we're going to get our buddy D-Gun up here in a second. I think it's absolutely fair after the fact to be able to go back and say, well, no, that should have been done there. And despite what, quote unquote, the mocks, the projections, whatever else. If you took Russell Wilson in the first round back in the year that he was in the draft, I don't think you can say, well, but that wasn't a good value pick. I think once the evidence is in, that's what you judge off. Not what you were projected to go at. It's by what you actually do on the field.
Yeah, but I'm saying, Jody, I'm saying in Howie's mind. In Howie's mind, it wouldn't be.
Then Howie's wrong.
It makes sense from the standpoint. Everybody, there's a best player in every draft, and it might be a fourth rounder. I always bring up John Randall because I covered him. He wasn't drafted, and he's in the Hall of Fame, so he should have went in the top 5, if minimum. And I'd have to look back at the draft. But when you're a Hall of Famer, it's pretty. You should have went pretty high. But if you would have taken him top 5, top 10 in that moment, you would have been, as a GM, and should have been fired. Now, that's an extreme example, but because it rarely ever happens. And the draft was 12 rounds by then. Think about that, Jody. Draft was 12 rounds back then. Nobody drafted the kid. He's in the Hall of Fame. That's extreme, but it's an example. Sorry, that's not a good pick. Even though he turned into a Hall of Famer, if you took him at top 10 in that moment as a GM, you're a moron.
I would say all the general managers who didn't take him were morons. So that general manager who does take him shouldn't be fired. because everybody else proved out to be a moron. I judge the results. I don't judge the moment in the moment and overreact to it. When it goes forward and you got 2, 5, 8, 10 years to judge, that's what you judge on. That's life. That's the real world. And I think that more emphasis should be put on that than what everybody thought at the moment. All it was a thought. All it was an evaluation. And then reality happens and we can actually find out how good or bad a player is. And that's what you should be judged on in 2020.
Yeah, but what does reality become? And we got to get to D Gun. What does reality to become? He gets into a certain situation. He gets into an organization known dating back to the days of Alan Page for developing defensive linemen. They gave him an opportunity as an undersized 260-pound guy. They developed him. He got to play behind, Keith Ballard and Henry Thomas and Pro Bowl level players and get to learn from them. He could have went to freaking Tampa Bay and been awful. It'd been out of the league in 2 years. So no, Jody,
that would be Tampa's choice, and that general manager could be fired. The Minnesota general manager couldn't. If he took him in the first round and he was behind those guys and it was set up to be as effective as it was, well, then, yeah, guess what? Nice pick. Good job, buddy. You're keeping your job. You're getting a raise.
He didn't pick him, and there's way more nuance than just, he turned into a Hall of Fame player. He was an undrafted
nuance
rookie.
Is great in the moment. Nuance is useless 5, 10 years down the road. After it has played itself out, you can actually judge the results. Nuance goes out the window.
The goal is not to hit the lottery once. It's to be consistently good over a long period of time.
Derek Gunn from the Sports Take, our afternoon show here on the JAKIB YouTube channel, is going to jump in next. Always respect D-Gun. I respect everything about D-Gun, but I've always respected his ability to judge the draft. We got a lot of draft questions and Eagle questions in general for D-Gun next here on Birds 365.